Well, in Parent Talk, the teenage years, we've looked at so many topics together. But perhaps the hardest one is the last one. We have to let them go. I knew that if my daughter invited me to speak at her wedding reception, I would recite the last verse of a poem I put at the back of a book I wrote some years ago called The 60-Minute Father. The poem is about a dad teaching his little girl to ride a bicycle. He holds the back of the saddle, and then when she's not looking, he lets it go. And then she starts to wobble, so he grasps it again and lets it go and grasps it, but it doesn't go well for this little girl. And finally she's pushing her bike home with tears streaming down her face as her friends go whizzing by on their bikes. But the last verse, the one I recited at my daughter's wedding reception, goes like this. Tomorrow, though, I will run behind, arms out to catch her lest she fall. But suddenly she will tilt, then balance wide of my reach till distance makes her small. And I will remember that to teach her I had to follow, but when she learned, I had to let her go. It's the hardest of all the parental lessons because we've spent all our lives trying to keep them from pain, keeping them safe. We've seen them across roads, we've wrapped them up warmly against the winter chill. But we can't go on doing that all their lives. We can't go around the home of every boy or girl who breaks their heart. We can't go up to school and complain about every teacher who's remotely nasty to them. Do you know, I remember when my son was about 14 and he'd forgotten to do some homework that had to be in the next day. And I'm not proud of this, but it is completely true. I remember it now, it's about 11:30 at night, and I am typing this essay furiously, and he's lying on a settee shouting across helpful hints at me. Now, it's understandable. Every parent wants to make life right for their child, but it's not always a good idea. They get sacked from their Saturday job, we still give them money to go out with their friends. We pay their mobile phone bill, we do their homework, and we think we do well, but actually we send them into life with a disadvantage. Because when they're 35, it won't be their mobile phone bill, it'll be their mortgage. And it won't be getting out of bed for football, it'll be getting out of bed for a job. And it won't be some homework for a geography teacher, it'll be a report for work. And anyway, if they think their teacher's tough, wait till they get a boss. And we forgot that all along our job was to get them ready for the day when we're not there. We had to learn to let them go. Psychologist Madeline Levine puts it like this. She says, just as the toddler would fumble trying to learn to tie their shoelaces, so the teenager must fumble with tasks, sometimes getting them wrong. And the parent who always intervenes to make life right robs that teenager of something special, a sense of self.
I tend to find my parents let me be quite independent.
100% independent.
Yeah, I'm quite independent because I drive, so I can go where I want.
Like, they try and push me to be independent, but I'm not an independent person, so it doesn't really work.
They let me do certain things with my friends and do this and do that, but they always ask me what time I'd be back.
Yeah, my parents would phone me when I'm out to see when I'm going to be in and that, and then they'd want me to be in on a certain time so they know how I am and all that, so they keep phoning and that, overprotective.
And I've got benchmarks, if I'm not home by a certain time, things like that.
If I want something, I have to earn it. I have to do something in order to gain the money and then go and buy it or whatever.
The earlier you get into jobs and stuff like that, and the earlier you get to be yourself and learn that you have to earn to live.
Cooks for me, washes my clothes for me, and does my best for me, I would say, and that's about it. But other than that, I do everything else myself.
If you're at home and dependent a lot on your parents, you won't ever know how to live in the real world, basically.
I would say my parents let me be really independent. Got quite a lot of freedom. It's good.
Right, so I'm off out now. Okay?
Fine, yeah.
Great. I know it's getting dark, but I'll be fine.
We know you'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
Have a nice time.
You'll be fine. Go. Have you got your radio?
Check your radio.
Okay, I've got her.
Where did she go? Left or right?
Okay, hang on.
Let's get on a bus.
Okay, you're gonna have to get a taxi.
Taxi! Taxi! She's coming.
Quick!
Hello, darling.
Hi, darling. Hi.
How are you?
Not enough, really. We don't give enough responsibility, really, do we? We've still got our hands very much on the control, really.
They've got a chores rota, and everyone has got duties to do, and I expect them to do it.
Washing dishes. Yeah, washing dishes. Chores.
Cleaning, yeah, chores.
Toilet, bedrooms, just stuff you really wouldn't want to do as a child, but I guess you have to, yeah. Yeah.
She's got a cooking day, no?
She does.
What? Tuesdays?
I think I have to cook on one of the days. It never really happens.
You know, she's got to understand the value of money and that.
I'm saving.
And yeah, you know, at some point you're going to have to pay bills.
Especially now I'm driving, is if they can't get there, for example, to pick Becky up, like, they'll call me. Like, I understand that if my parents are working and obviously if I'm free or something, I will pick her up, but like, that is a responsibility.
We're trying to give her more responsibility. She's allowed to use public transport on her own.
It was a little bit of a shock when the older teenagers would say, Mum, it's okay, I can catch a bus, I can catch a train. And of course, in my case, being a single parent, it's convenience as well, because my mind and the busyness of my life is so all over the place. I have to just accept and say, yes, I just have to trust.
When you have a single parent and so many younger siblings, you know, there's always that, like, oh, can you babysit tonight, or can you cook dinner tonight, or can you sort out the fighting going on upstairs?
Our parents give us responsibility for each other, I think. I'm a lot of the time responsible for Will and Finn, and Finn's responsible for Will a lot of the time, and even me as well. And yeah, and our dog as well.
Absolutely come down like a hammer on the idea of smoking. We've scared them to death about that all the way through their life. Showing them pictures of things that kids really shouldn't say. You don't want your lungs looking like this.
We don't allow them to smoke. Don't allow them to drink. I tell them, I don't smoke. I don't drink. You don't see me walking in drunk in this house. If it's not happening to me, it's not happening to anybody living under this roof. There is no room for negotiation.
Like, I've gone out, like, at night, and I've come back in a state, and she'll just be like, oh, it's okay. No, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think we've been brought up as well to know, like, right from wrong. So then if, like, we wanted to go somewhere but we know it's wrong, we wouldn't go anyway. Like, we don't really need our parents. Well, we do need our parents.
We don't really need them to say what it is.
Because we know ourselves.
Yeah, we know ourselves.
We don't really like disrespectful language. So if he treats anybody with a bit of disrespect, either me, you, or his brothers and sisters, then that's a no-no. So we watch language.
I love the idea of my children growing up. The whole idea, I think, for a parent is that you're creating people that should be better than you are.
I will miss my children if they were to leave home. But if they were to leave home in the right circumstance, I'll be very proud. A bit sad, but I'll be proud. It would be an achievement for me.
I can't believe it's happened so quickly, actually. And it probably makes everybody feel a bit emotional when you start thinking about him.
Even me, I mean, I make a joke of it all the time, saying, yeah, don't let the door hit you on the way out. But it will be very, very different when he's not here.
Growing up and being independent is scary, and I wasn't prepared for it, how fast it came round. Like, I can't believe that I'm the age that I am.
It's something that's got to be done.
I think it's harder for you, isn't it?
It's harder for me. I think I'll miss them awful.
It is exciting to see them growing up, and scary at the same time.
Oh, I think it's a great thing, moving out I think it's the only thing I really want to do next year is get out of it.
I'm really excited to really become my own person, become really self-reliant.
It's a privilege really to watch them, although it's really knackering and really hard work, and emotionally it's draining. It's it's great to see them growing up.
Although there is everything out there that can be bad, it's a wonderful world out there as well, with wonderful opportunities.
We want them to grow and leave the house, but just the thought of me not having my 4 children, I don't know how I'll cope with that. Because even now, when one of them is out, I'm not settled until I know that they're under my roof.
I'm just happy and excited for them to follow their dreams and get out there and do what they've been created to do.
I don't want to let them go.
They're going.
I know,
Yeah.
but it's hard. It's very hard.
I think it's just gone too quickly. His childhood and his teenage years have just feel as if they've just gone like that. I'm going to cry.
As long as we're on this earth, we just want them to know that we are there for them.
Physically, there'll be a distance, but emotionally, we want to maintain that family kinship.
I don't want that relationship with Emily where she's constantly in my pocket when she's older. She's got to go and live her own life.
I think I'll always be proud of them. I'll always love them. But you know, as they develop who they are and find their place in the world, I think that's really and contribute to other people. Then I think that's the most that we can hope for, really.
I hope she comes and visits.
How frequently?
She can come quite often.
I hope she calls us on Skype more than we call our parents.
I really hope that we become closer. We do understand that he will fly the nest, but I hope that will develop us even stronger as a family with them.
They always see us as somebody they can always come back to at any point in their lives.
I just hope that we can still stay close, because my mum and dad are in different places, so I've got, for the first time in quite a while, I feel like I've got a good relationship with them both.
As a family, we've had quite a few family crises happening, quite a few traumas. I'm just hoping that's really brought us closer together, that we'll all look after one another.
I think definitely that I want, with my future, wife and kids, have those spontaneous days where we go, hey, let's go visit grandma and let's just spend the day with grandma and let's just have that quality family time.
No, I just hope that our relationship will just carry on and get stronger and stronger, and that as he becomes a parent, we become grandparents, that whole relationship just develops more, and I just hope that it's just lovely.
Slip the grandparent bit a bit early.
If ever I wanted to go over, I wouldn't need my mum to text me and say, oh, come over for a coffee. So I'd like to think that we could just pop up and there wouldn't be a problem,
Yeah, basically would be to them what our parents were to us. And,
yeah.
We'd
always be there for them. We love them, support them, help them out of dark, deep times, help them through the good times.
That's what it is, just to be there if need be.
The older they get, the faster the time goes.
Yeah, this is terrible. And the thing is, you'll look back when you've got teenage kids and it seems 5 minutes since they're 18 months old. And it just does whiz past. I always say to any parent who's got a young child, enjoy every day because it soon goes. It soon goes.
It sure does.
I have 3 children who are now young adults, and it's been very interesting to see how they have coped with moving on from being very dependent on us as parents to being individuals who can make good choices in different situations. I remember it being a struggle from when they were quite young, probably in their early teens, and wanting to go into town on the bus. And I had driven them everywhere. I drove them to school, I drove them to their ballet classes. I think it's so different from when I was growing up, where we used to disappear for the whole day on our bikes, and our children didn't have that freedom. I would have known where they were at all times. I remember feeling quite anxious at giving them that freedom, but knowing that I had to do it. I used to make sure if they were away on a school trip, I would deliberately do something else to take my mind off it. And it sounds so melodramatic now, but it's a big deal at the time. But I think once you've done it a few times, it gets so much easier. It's just a part of it. And to give them the freedom to do that, which seemed like such a big deal, but for them was really significant to have the freedom to be able to do that. That was a real turning point for me in seeing them come home safe. You change as well. The relationship is changing and maturing, and you stop treating them like children because you're giving them this freedom. They're responding to that. It's just starting to do it that is the hardest. So I think that's one of the hardest things about letting go, that awareness that you're not in full control of what they're doing all the time, but it's a necessary part of letting them go.
Well, in this session, we're looking at letting go, and it is great to be joined by Mark Chester and by Caroline Bradley. Caroline, when we listened to that mum talking about how she found it difficult to let her children go as they made their way to independence, is that something you could identify with?
I most certainly can. I have had 3 boys who have walked the journey of the teenage years, and it certainly is a real challenge. Each stage has its own unique challenges, but I think it's a real slow journey that you go on through those early teenage years up through 16, 17, 18, until you gradually reach that point where you realise they're becoming adults on their own. And it's always having your mind realising that's where you're working towards, but it is a really challenging thing to go through, and there's lots of emotions attached with it, so I really understand that journey.
And what about you, Mark? Is that something you're finding difficult?
Yeah, I do identify, because my daughter's 17 and my son is 13, so I feel as if I'm right in the midst of it, really. And there's all sorts of anxieties as a result of letting go. You know, I'm fearful of who they're going to meet, of what decisions they're going to make, of what dangers they're going to encounter, what risks they might take. So all of those concerns are really vivid for me at the moment.
And I think the truth is that process starts the day they're born, really. You know, it's a long journey to independence, but there are some certain milestones on the way, like when they go to secondary school, first day they get the bus on their own or go out with their friends or whatever it is, that require us to make some decisions and to probably choose sometimes to allow them a bit more freedom.
Yes, that's right. I think one of the hardest times came for me when it was that first big trip they took on their own, and you knew they had to do it all on their own. They had to make the choices if things went wrong. And you wanted to overmother them, but you know, you have to just hope that you've taught them enough that they can manage that journey on their own.
Yeah, I think that's really hard, isn't it? And we know that it's good for them to, you know, take risks and to have adventures. But as the parent watching on, that can be really hard, because our gut instinct is to want to protect them, to keep them safe.
Yeah, I remember when my son wanted to go to school for the first time on his bike, and you know, we were very anxious about that, really, because it's quite a long journey and over some busy roads. But one of the things we did there was we went through the route with him, so we talked about which way he was going to go, how he was going to get across this road or that road. And I think that's quite a good principle to apply to any times we're letting go, that if we rehearse the route with our children, actually it may ease our anxieties, but it also helps them in their decision making when they encounter some difficulties.
And I think part of it too is when we are letting them go and they do go off and they travel and you give them the space, it's them understanding that you're letting them go and that sometimes they'll be step forward and step back. And that's why it's gradual, isn't it? It's just little steps at a time. You don't have to do it all one day that you let go and tomorrow they're all on their own. It's a gradual thing that you walk through.
And I think as parents, it's often very tempting to step in, isn't it? I know I don't like them learning things the hard way. I want life to be easy for them. But actually, we don't do them any favours, I think, if we're always stepping in and preventing them from learning. And I think the temptation is to be what's known as helicopter parents. So helicopter parents hover over their children, and whenever they see that something might go wrong, or even anyway, they dive in there and kind of smother them almost with advice and just interference. And I even heard of one mother who apparently went along to her children's job interviews with them. And I mean, that can't be a good thing.
I think I could be in danger of being a helicopter parent at times, to be honest, because I really struggle with letting go, and I find it really difficult, get very anxious about it.
Just going out into the world is a risk. The environment they go into. I remember my boys, my twin sons, were going off on their first big holiday on their own, and feeling so anxious as a mother as I left them to the airport, and I'm thinking it wasn't just about packing their case, it was about making sure they had the right money and they kept it safe and they knew what to do with the cards if there was an emergency, that they would be able to work out what terminal they'd be able to be at and how they'd feel if there was a delay. And I had this panic attack as a mother, and yet I knew I had to let them go. They had to learn to do those journeys on their own, and it was a bit easier because they both did it together. But we just sometimes have to say, that is a big world out there and you have to take the risk and go, and I'm trusting you. And on that occasion, having the phone as a contact point was a safety net for them, and it also meant that I felt not completely leaving them to do it without any sort of backup. But they managed to go into that world of risk. But it does feel hard as a parent to let them take those risks in a dangerous world at times.
It helps me sometimes to think about what I was like when I was a teenager. And when I think back, the lessons I learned, the strongest lessons were when I made mistakes. I can remember some of the mistakes I made as a teenager, and that's helped me through my life, really. So we do have to allow them to make some mistakes as well, don't we, really? Because they are the times when they probably learn the best lessons, and that stands them in good stead for the rest of their lives.
And I think as our role as parents of teenagers, it changes, doesn't it? So when they're little, we're doing everything for them. We make all the decisions. We decide what they're going to do, where and when. And then as they get older, our role becomes much more of a consultant, and we have to allow them to make the decisions. We can give advice, but then we have to stand back and they choose what they're going to do, and then they have to live with the consequences of that.
Yeah, but we get so anxious about those choices, don't we, and those consequences. And I suppose the thing about anxiety is that its bark's worse than its bite. Anxiety is often dismantled by reality. I remember a time a few years ago when my daughter sat us down and said to us, Mum and Dad, do you realise that I go out babysitting at weekends? I stay in other people's houses till late looking after their children, but you never go out and let me stay at home on my own or look after my brother. And we had to admit that she was right. She was more ready for that responsibility than we thought she was. And so we started to go out, and it was great for us. We got some time together, and it also gave her more confidence.
I think one of the things that's quite hard as a parent is when our children start having girlfriends, boyfriends.
Yeah, we always try to encourage our boys to bring friends home. And one night we arrived back, having allowed them to have some friends home, to discover my son having a nice little snog in the kitchen with a girl. And I realised my reaction was really important there in letting him go to enjoy new friendships and explore what a relationship and a partner in his life would look like, and realise that that wasn't losing me, but that I would be friends with his friends. And that's always a real challenge, isn't it? As a letting go and realising the emotions were changing.
And for our teenagers, I think that can be quite hard. How do you talk to your parents about the fact that, you like a boy or a girl, or do you talk to them about it? But having a home where, if possible, they feel they can bring friends back, I think can be a really good thing.
I think it is, and it's really good to try and do that, but sometimes it just doesn't work out because they perhaps don't want you to know their friends. Recently I said to my son, he was talking about a new friend, and I said, why don't you bring him back for tea? And he just sort of laughed at me as if to say, there's no chance I'm doing that. So that's really difficult because I can't get to know him, but other friends you can get to know.
And I think that's one of the hard adjustments for us as parents in letting go, in understanding that they do have a life, they will have friends, and we may not know anything about them. And I guess, At one level, it's easy talking about this here, but in reality, none of this is easy. And, you know, we may have a child who has a particular personality when they're more prone to risk-taking. I mean, it may be that we live somewhere where we know that they're not going to be that safe when they're out. But whatever our situation and whatever particular challenges we have, our task is to help them into independence. And I think one of the things that can really help us with that is having other parents around that we can get advice from and that we can chat to.
I agree, and we have to acknowledge, don't we, that we can do everything right as parents, we can love them, we can care for them, we can guide them, but still sometimes they will go off the rails. And I think when that happens, it can be a very lonely place. And so it's really important that we get support from one another as parents in those circumstances. And so if we're in a couple that we parent together, we try and parent coherently. If we're not in a couple, if we're parenting alone, I think it's really important to get the support of friends and to be able to talk through issues and challenges with other people and with other parents.
I think what we found really helpful is finding people that are that little bit further on in the parenting journey who have navigated some of these challenges already and come through the other side. And we've really found that helpful, just getting practical advice from them or them telling us just what we're going through is normal. Yeah. So a lot of this is hard and it can be challenging for us, you know, as parents of teenagers in helping them move through those different milestones to that day when they are, you know, becoming independent. But one of the things I have loved as a parent is seeing their characters develop, seeing them become passionate about different things, seeing their gifts develop, and in fact seeing them flourish and become adults. That's been really great. And so out of all the things that we've talked about a lot, if you could give one top tip to parents of teenagers, Mark, what would it be?
Well, I think parenting teenagers can be a lonely business, and I think if it's possible, it's really important that we meet up with other parents of teenagers. And I would just encourage people to be open with one another, be honest with one another, and support one another.
That's brilliant. And Caroline, what would your top tip be?
Well, I think my top tip, Catherine, would be that to remind yourself all the way along that actually you're trying to work yourself out of a job. What you're trying to do is create healthy, confident, happy, independent adults who can actually make their way in the world and thrive without you at their side all the time.
Brilliant. That is great. Guys, thank you so much for being with us. It's been really good. Thank you.
Well, in Parent Talk, the teenagers, we've looked at so many topics together. Why do teenagers suddenly behave the way they do? How do you handle conflict with your teenager? How do you communicate love to somebody who seems only to want to grunt at you? And then we looked at some of those big issues that affect our teenagers and how we can help them navigate through them. And finally, we came to the hardest one of all, letting them go. And it is hard, isn't it? A mum wrote to me, she said, from age 13 to 18, I desperately wanted my son to sort his room out. I was always on his back to do it. And suddenly he left for college. And I walked past a too tidy bedroom. I really hope you've enjoyed Parent Talk to Teenagers. If you want to find out more about Care for the Family, go to our website. There's lots of great articles there, tips and advice, other ways we can support you, and other courses as well. But as we draw to a close, let almost the last word go to Kerry, age 14. Kerry wrote this: parents need to understand that we want to stay out late, but we need somebody to care what time we get in at night. We don't want anyone nagging us over homework, yet sometimes we need someone to push us a bit to get it done. We're too old to be hugged, yet sometimes we still need to be. We know it all, and at times we feel like kids in junior school again. We want to be free and still know that you're on guard. And then Kerry, age 14, wrote these words: parenting must be a hard job. Yes, it is a hard job, and perhaps one day, Kerry, you will find out how very hard. But the last word goes to me. In fact, 10 words. These 10 words should be engraved into the ceiling of every parent of teenagers' bedroom, so they see them before they go to sleep and they bore into their very beings at night. As long as you've got teenagers, say these 10 words to yourselves 50 times a day. Don't take all the credit. Don't take all the blame.